this.
It's a 60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all.
Well, unfortunately, Irish eyes are not smiling right now as Ohio State has claimed this year's national championship, 34-23 over Notre Dame. Here we are, Jeff Barnes, Greg Rector. Greg, this is and it is heartbreaking for Irish fans all over. A good game overall. Got a little crazy for a while before the Irish kind of came back and made it something at the end. But once again, just no defense to stop this Buckeyes team today.
Yeah, and I tweeted at you when they made it 21-7. This ball game is over. It was basically, as I'd said in my season preview, if the Fighting Irish win games, it's going to be because of their defense, and their defense didn't show up tonight. It's unfortunate, but the Ohio State Buckeyes are deserving to be the national champions, and that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. We last time we were on, we talked about, when Notre Dame beat Georgia and how they outcoached Kirby, right? It was the one thing that you outfoxed the fox, right? But tonight it seemed like they got very, I want to say basic. And basic as in, okay, we're in a tough situation. Let's punt. Okay, let's run this coverage, and they seem to be picking it apart. And okay, I'm waiting for Al Golden's defense to come up with a wrinkle that's going to confuse the quarterback here. Never happened. He only missed one pass in the first half. Yeah. He caught fire. Judkins was already on fire. Okay, 11 carries, 100 yards, 2 TDs today, and it's just. I did not see the Al Golden defense we saw against Georgia. And I said they were going to have the issues in the secondary. Did I not? I said you have to slow down this passing attack. Couldn't cover nobody in the first half.
No. Leonard Moore got beat by Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith's touchdown, that was a horrible, horrible non-timeout by Marcus Freeman there. You got the two defensive backs on the other side of the end zone. Hello. You call a timeout there. You don't let Ohio State run that play. Their best receiver is wide open. I just didn't understand that because I was shouting at the TV because I knew what was coming. Jeremiah Smith touchdown. I mean, it's just like, what in the world? Tonight, Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes outcoached the Fighting Irish. Bottom line.
Absolutely. This is Ryan Day's coronation.
Mike Denbrock, as I tweeted to you after Notre Dame's great opening drive, I mean, it was 9 minutes, 45 seconds. They get up to a lead, and then Ohio State marches the ball all the way down themselves in 6 minutes or whatever it was. And I said to you when Notre Dame got that football back that he had to call something deeper, because Ohio State was punishing the line, trying to stop Riley Leonard, who had 9 rushes on that first drive, which was just insane. And they didn't do any of that until the third quarter. It was, I mean, I just did not understand that because, again, the Ohio State Buckeye corner that we both said, two holding penalties tonight, a pass interference and a holding call. Why didn't they go after him on that second drive? It just made no sense to me.
I will say this. They seem to be steadfast in controlling the ball on the ground, using their line, run the ball. I mean, with how they started the season with the 2 tight ends and trying to run the ball, and then all of a sudden you get to the push late in the season, they're spreading the field and running the ball with Riley Leonard in the backs. and that was their way of getting it done. Today, I would love to have seen those two tight ends because that was how you're going to get Jeremiah Love going. You weren't going to be able to do it spreading them out.
No.
And so that's why they kept running Riley Leonard on those counter runs because they tried to run Love wide. You can't really run wide on Ohio State unless you have guys that can help set the edge, those two tight ends. Right. Yeah. So that's where I looked at the game plan. I said, this is flawed. It was a nice first drive, but you overused your quarterback. He scores. He can't even celebrate. He's humped over because he's worn out. He's took a pounded drive. Okay. You overused Riley Leonard on the first drive. As you know, you look on the opposite side, Will Howard was able to sit in the pocket and just dink, 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 touchdown. Okay. Because the pass rush wasn't getting there. He was seeing the blitzes coming. He was adjusting at the line of scrimmage. All right. And then you were able to see him find guys wide open in coverage. I mean, whether they were in zone, whether they're in man, there were times they were dropping in the zone and the guy's catching the ball and the defender was 8 yards off.
Yep.
So there were times with the secondary, I was wondering what Al Golden was doing. The first half, he had zero answers. He seemed to figure it out a little after he got down 31. But overall, the answers had to come earlier. If you were going to win this game, they had to come. You weren't going to win this game coming from behind. That just was not going to happen.
Nope.
When they closed the 31-15, I said, this is going to be a cosmetic thing. They may even get the 23. But guess what? What happened? They got it. Ohio State had that ball with 3 minutes left. They got into a third down, one-on-one with Christian Gray, and he beats him with a double move. I mean, you're not going to beat Ohio State coming back. That's not at Notre Dame's MO versus teams like this. You got to get that, like Georgia. Get the lead, go out there, and hold it. You can't go out there and chase these guys for 4 quarters. It wasn't going to happen.
No. And when Notre Dame, on that first series of theirs on defense, when they didn't stop Ohio State, I said this is going to be a bad day. Because, again, Notre Dame's strength all year long has been creating turnovers and scoring off turnovers. They had 158 points scoring off turnovers this year, which was way more than any team has had in the last decade. And when they didn't come up with those turnovers early, this was going to be a nightmare. Again, and Will Howard didn't throw anything deep. He wasn't going deep. He was going with those crossing routes, and Notre Dame's linebackers and the safeties just weren't in the right places at the right time. They were positionally okay, but they were a step behind them. And when you get a step behind those Ohio State receivers, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I'm going to say one more thing about this, and that is, you know, we watched the running backs today. Henderson had some tough runs in there, but Judkins was just on fire today.
He was a monster.
You weren't if you're Al Golden, that first drive had to have been a light flashing in your head saying we got to make some major adjustments. That didn't happen.
No.
You can't go out there and think that you're going to beat Ohio State when they're having equal success running and throwing the football against you. Right? Yeah. You take away their running game and make Will Howard beat you for 300 yards, and he does that, so be it. If you're slowing Will Howard down, but somehow these two running backs are grinding out 200 yards, so be it. But you can't have darn near 10 yards a carry for Judkins. He's basically 9 yards a carry versus Notre Dame with 2 TDs. And then Will Howard, like I said, the first half was 14 of 15. Okay? 14 of 15.
Yep.
All right. You can't do that. You're not going to beat this team that way. So this is a well-earned national title for Ohio State. Like I said, this is Ryan Day's coronation. This is the one thing that he has not been able to accomplish his whole time at Ohio State. He's gotten accomplished now. They can take like Steve Young, you can pull the proverbial monkey off his back because plain and simple.
He still has that one other monkey from that school up north, but
he's beaten them enough times prior to this little run. Yeah, but
Exactly, right?
this was the one thing. All's forgiven right now. They ain't thinking about Michigan right now. Okay,
Yeah.
all's forgiven right now in Columbus. Ryan Day is God again.
Mhm.
Okay, so all's right with the world in Columbus, Ohio, right now. Because plain and simple, they don't care about the loss to Michigan because guess what? They're getting fitted for one of these. They're getting fitted for championship rings tomorrow. Okay, so kudos to those guys. Listen, they got it done when they needed to get it done. And yeah, we can talk about some of the Notre Dame guys who had great games. Jalen Greathouse had a great game. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, right?
But again, when did he get used? In the second half.
Second half, yes.
When they were behind, and it's always boggled my mind that you keep trying to run that football as much as Notre Dame does. And again, you know me, I love the ground game in football. I love seeing guys get yardage on the ground because I like to see offensive linemen coming out and pancaking defensive linemen, pancaking a linebacker, and watching a running back go. That's football for me. But you have to be efficient and smart in the passing game, and they didn't do that with Greathouse until the second half. It was too late.
I agree. This is the one thing I've knocked Freeman for is when you're a defensive coach, sometimes you get too comfortable being that control kind of game. Even Bill Parcells, who was one of the most defensive-minded coaches when it came to offensive game plan, was one of those guys that knew when it was time to attack people and I had to pull out all the stops offensively, do it. Don't wait until I'm down to do it. And I think that was the one thing that I said Notre Dame missed tonight. They came out with nice controlled drive on it, but you couldn't think the second, third, and fourth drives are going to go that same way.
No,
there was no way.
that third drive,
unfortunate for that to happen.
The third drive was the one that just totally killed Notre Dame because they had the false start and then the hold. And when you commit 2 penalties like that, you're going to be behind that 8 ball, behind those sticks, whatever you want to call it, and you're not going to succeed that way. You're just not.
Absolutely, and you have to look at it as, you get to the third, that second and 25.
Yeah.
And then you run the ball and get third and 23. You're not built for third and 23.
No.
So you had to be aggressive on second down, and you weren't.
The 2-yard run for Jeremiah Love there was, what the hell's this? We're third and 25 or second and 25. Pardon me.
You got to be aggressive to get back into a manageable third down situation. That wasn't going to get it done. So, like I said, this is one of those times where being controlled hurt Notre Dame, and it put them in a bad situation. You weren't having success defensively early, and the result was you were down 31-7 in the third. Bill, welcome to the show.
Yes, hello there. There's a couple of things that jumped out at me, and the first thing is the talent gap. And obviously, we can get on things about scheme, we can get on things about execution, but to me, it was just clear that, I mean, Jeff, you and I do an NFL draft focused show, and if you're an NFL
starting this Wednesday, 9:15 p.m.
There we go. Yes, the best plug is a shameless one. We do it. If you're an NFL team, you are finding players at every level of offense and defense on both sides of the ball, right? And Ohio State has multiples of them.
Yes.
And not to say there's nobody, right? Notre Dame has some offensive linemen they're definitely going to play at the next level. I think at least one, maybe even 2 of their running backs, 1, maybe 2 of their wide receivers. Notre Dame tight ends always end up in the NFL. Some of the guys from their secondary, obviously, though because of some of their limitations, they may not be the same sort of players at the next level they were in college, because it's harder to hide, right? It's harder to hide a guy who's really smart and really this and really that, but just can't flip his hips and run. At some point in the NFL, they find you if you can't flip your hips and run, no matter what else you can do. They're going to make you do the thing you don't do.
On that last Ohio State big big play to Jeremiah Smith. When I saw that it was Christian Gray on him, I went, uh-oh.
Right. Some of these guys may end up becoming safeties or hybrid sort of players as opposed to being pure corners. Playing corner in the NFL is, I don't think people understand how incredibly difficult a position cornerback is to play at the highest level. Anyway, I mean, I'm sure Jeff, you could give us a really nice reason, a whole list of reasons why it's one of the hardest things to do, because you are not allowed. Guys get away with being really grabby in college, right? They'll give you a little bit of, you're given a little bit more latitude. You're gonna be a flag machine when you get to the next level if you can't disengage quickly. They'll give you sometimes maybe half a yard beyond the 5, right? But if at yard 6 you're still engaged, get ready to ask Terrion Arnold about that transition. But that was the thing I noticed. The second thing, obviously, and I'm sure you guys have already hammered away at it, when you are a team that throws the ball when it has to, right, as opposed to just embraces the passing game naturally, the thing that is your waking nightmare is falling down quickly by several scores. That is the thing that you're hoping to avoid, because as you just said, I'm sure, it's the thing that you're trying to hide certain things, right? I mean, let's be honest. You're trying to hide, and once again, Riley Leonard is a scrappy, smart, competitive, all the things I'm sure everyone's already said. The thing where he is least comfortable is making throws, really contested throws, right? Throws where somebody's not breaking wide open, but is trying to either come back versus coverage, or simply jumping up over or back shoulder, all that stuff that you try to do to get someone open. And then last but not least, you only have one wide receiver that I've spotted so far, Notre Dame, amongst that group that you have, that is a above average, projecting to the next level physical prospect, right? Talking not college, but the next step. So that means that most of your receivers are guys that are either average to below average NFL prospects, right?
Yeah.
NFL prospects.
Yeah.
They are very good college wide receivers. And Ohio State has guys that are, like I said, flat out, no doubt NFL prospects in their secondary. Flat out, no doubt NFL prospects all along their defensive line. Flat out, no doubt prospects that are one or two linebackers who are going to play at the next level. And their offensive line is about the measure of your offensive line. Like, that's the strength of Notre Dame, and it's not an advantage, right? When your strongest strength is still probably a draw, right, with the other team, and then everything else is a win in terms of, going down the list of guys who are going to project to being prospects at the next level, then you have to have everything else go your way. To overcome a disparity of that type in talent, everything else has to go your way. You have to beat the living daylights out of them special teams, right? You have to gain a few quote-unquote hidden yards on every exchange of the ball. You cannot ever give them what I call soft possession, right? Where you don't at least gain a little bit of yardage before you punt it back, where you don't at least make them drive anything, past the 25, basically, right? If they're getting the ball on the other side of their 25 and they're as talented as they are, if that happens more than a couple of times, you're going to automatically chalk it up as points. And then if you're also giving them the big play check mark, right? If they're better at getting plays and you're getting big plays, and you need to, when your team is a team that generally has long sustained drives, you're getting hit with lightning strikes, and then you have to try to fight back with gut punches, right? Lightning strike, and you're using gut punches to get back. That's a hard way to win a football game. So I'm sure, like I said, you've gone over a lot of this. I think that it would have taken. They'd have. You get the first score, right? You're looking good. Everything's going your way, And then when they come back at you as quickly as they did, and then the next time they get the ball, boom, right? That was where you had to stop the bleeding, right? If once you get to multiple scores, I mean, I'm not saying you're a service academy offense, right? I'm not saying that, but you're close in terms of when it comes to how you have to approach being down. Once you get to 3 scores down, once again, not impossible. Even early, though, 3 scores down with this kind of offense where you are looking usually at sustained, 9, 10, 11, 12 play drives, it's just so tough to sustain that. It's just, especially when their pass rush is their pass rush, right? It's not any old pass rush. It's not, I mean, I know you've seen other teams that can rush the passer, but they just have waves. They don't have an Abdul Carter, but they have guys who are, but they have 4 guys who are close.
They've got 4 guys who can come after any quarterback. JTT was phenomenal tonight. And again, he was going up against a guy who hasn't played all season at left tackle. He played right guard last week. Yasuga. So again, there's another downfall because Knapp had played so well at left tackle for the Irish all year long.
Right.
And I'm not going to use the injury excuse because I don't believe in that. But Yasuga just didn't have the game tonight that he needed to have against JTT. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Bill. Listen, this is why I hate when people use the opt-out excuse for bowl games with some of these schools that have top 5, top 10 recruiting classes,
Right.
have 70 guys dressed, and they talk about, we were missing these guys. You still have all these beautiful tools in the shed here that you're finally getting a chance to play. Don't tell me that these guys can't play. There's a huge fall off. All these guys are your next set of pro-ready guys. Notre Dame is not known for that anymore.
Right.
They did a damn good job of it this year, though. With the amount of injuries that they dealt with this year.
No, they did a great job.
Yep.
And once again, it works with what their philosophy is, right?
Yep.
Controlled offense, play stout defense, keep teams off the board, out of the end zone consistently, and allow us to go out there and put up points as we need to get the win. But once again, like we talked about earlier, Greg, when you're that kind of team, you can't go out there and be beat both on the ground and in the air. Think that you're going to come back in this game. It's not. That's not your forte. That's not your MO. That's not how you won games this year. Okay, so that was the part that when I saw that early, when I saw that that Will Howard was going right down the field on him, and then to turn around and Judkins is gashing him, I said, this is not good. This is not good. Because that's where you're going to struggle. They did a good job holding Henderson down, but they couldn't stop Judkins. Judkins was too much for him today.
Yep. Yeah, and the last thing that sort of jumped out at me, in my mind, I had a number in my head. I said if Riley Leonard has to throw the ball more than 24 times, Notre Dame's not winning, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Notre Dame probably also knew that. And of course, the guy ended up under 24 attempts was Will Howard, just 17 of 21, right? Only 21 pass attempts, but they did a lot of damage. A lot of the passes were deep shots. And, Riley Leonard was an effective and efficient passer. Like when I'm being critical of him and saying I don't really see an NFL prospect, or he's not a starter when I watch him, it's not because he doesn't have some ability. I want to make it clear that he's a guy that has some ability. He's a guy that thinks some NFL team will, in fact, be happy to have as their backup. But he doesn't have the same comfort level throwing certain passes, right? There are certain passes where you could just see that both the offensive game plan didn't want him to have to throw, and then he doesn't embrace throwing them once again until desperation says it, which then you do what you have to do. The kind of passes they love and want is, play action and, it's a deep end to the tight end, or it's, skinny post up the seam. But when you have to drop back, 3 downs in a row and try to keep ripping balls into coverage, that is not, you said it before, it's not the strength of the team. It's not why you built your offense the way you built your offense. It's not why you went after Riley Leonard in the first place. You would have gone after a different kind of quarterback if that's what you wanted to do. There are guys who would be their forte, but he's not that guy. But like I said, in his defense, he played a really good game. Like he did what he could do. It's just not the kind of game where Riley Leonard is going to look like a superstar.
No. And again, like I said earlier, Bill, on the second Notre Dame drive, I tweeted Jeff in the DM there that Notre Dame had to throw that ball deep because they had Ohio State worried about Leonard running so much. You had to go deep on that next series, and they didn't do it. And it just boggled my mind right then and there. It was horrible. And again, I don't know where Denbrock's mind was in his play calling tonight. Al Golden, his mind defensively was not in place either. His players were in the right spots, but they just didn't tackle them quickly enough.
Right. Yeah.
Because Ohio State wasn't going deep with those passes. They were the crossing routes and all that fun sort of stuff.
Yeah. And he kind of took a little more risk in the second half.
Yeah.
With some of the different blitz looks and some of the things he did there with some of the zone blitzes. But he had to figure that out earlier. He couldn't wait till the second half to do that. And even then, it didn't happen right away. Remember, they came right out of the half, went right down the field on him. And the first thing they did was run Judkins, and he cuts it back, hits green grass, and he's up the middle. And luckily, he just runs out of gas inside the 20. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had to do that work on the next couple of carries. But nevertheless, it just goes to show. Once again, we talked about, not being able to stop the run tonight. They weren't able to do it,
Right.
It just didn't happen. And granted, we look at Judkins' numbers, 11 carries, 100 yards, 70 of it came on that long run in the second half.
Right.
But where's Judkins most effective? Short yardage, red zone, right?
Boom.
So he rips off this 70-yarder, which really inflates his numbers. But the fact of the matter was you couldn't get him down inside the 5-yard line.
No.
When he got the ball inside the 5, he ended up in the end zone.
It
just Notre Dame could not get that stop. If you were able to, at least if you were struggling, but once you got from 20 to 20, if you're struggling, you were willing to succeed. And I think that was kind of the problem in the first half. I think Golden was playing a lot of soft coverage. Kind of trying to take away the big play and let them down the field. But it wound up putting them in red zone, and they just couldn't stop them in the red zone. So I think the adjustment was, well, we can't play bend but don't break because they're scoring. We're breaking every time. I guess I just got to be aggressive. And he got aggressive and it started to slow them down, and it worked. But he got over aggressive on that last one, and Will Howard hit him over the top. So, it's kind of a catch-22. You tried to play bend but don't break. It didn't work. You got aggressive later on. It slowed him down. But in a crucial moment of the game, it broke you again.
Yeah.
Bend but don't break works best. One is when your offense is at least matching the other team, right? That's the one way it helps you play bend but don't break, is that you're right there. You're either tied or score behind, or preferably even a little bit ahead. You don't have to be as aggressive when that's the situation. When your offense is not keeping pace with the other offense, playing bend but don't break, you can't help but feel the pressure as a defensive play caller to not do that, to do something different. And then the other thing is, once again, to go back to what I said, talent disparity. When you do get to a guy and you can't get him on the ground, or a short pass turns into a 20-something or 30-something yard gain because the person that catches the ball either is just able to physically just pull away, you can't stay with him, or you get there and they're able to either through throwing a move or just overpowering you, able to defeat the tackle. If you're a great tackling defense and you're rallying up and getting people on the ground right away, playing bend but don't break actually is a pretty good idea. If you can't rally to the ball quickly enough, or when you get there, you can't get the person on the ground, then you can bend but don't break is not your friend. And in fact, people will yell at you because why are you letting them catch the ball? Why are you letting them such and such? And because you're thinking you're a rally up there and, get them to the ground after 4 to 6 yards or less. And then, but if you're not doing that, if you're not able to do that, you have to be more aggressive. You have to, swing your sword. And the one thing I would say, Notre Dame on both sides of the ball is essentially built to have extremely high execution, but low risk football generally, right? That's sort of what both sides of the ball are really built around. Super high level of execution, low risk. When all of a sudden the super high level execution goes away, now you can't stay low risk. You can't be medium or low level of execution and low level of risk. Like, unfortunately, football doesn't reward you for that. You don't get rewarded for not executing or even having average execution if you're not doing something to disrupt the other team that is turning the pressure up some kind of way. So if you did have a mismatched pass rusher, right? A guy who is just, and you could see Notre Dame really have one of those, right? They didn't have one of those guys that just flat out beats two guys with little to no problem consistently, or even beats one guy, boom, all the time, to the point that you have to slide protection in that person's way or chip or something. They don't have one of those guys, or at least not that I could see. They have good guys. They have guys who are going to, like I said, some of those, 2 or 3 of those guys will find their way to an NFL camp. 1 or 2 of them might even be mid to late round draft picks. But I didn't see a Von Miller. I didn't see Abdul Carter. I didn't see even a Tiamalu, right? I didn't see a Jack Sawyer shooting up for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So when you are playing bend but don't break, and you don't have that guy who tilts the field as a pass rusher, now you're asking a whole lot of your secondary. And you better be elite tacklers. Not good, not even great.
But you have to be elite. You had to hit those guys immediately, and that wasn't happening.
Yep.
Notre Dame's running game tonight. Jadarian Price had 3 runs for 13 yards.
Yep.
Faison had 1 carry for 1 yard. Jeremiah Love, 4 attempts, 3 yards. Where was Aeneas Williams tonight? Where was he? He wasn't even used in the backfield at all. He was great catching the ball out of the backfield in the game against Penn State. Where was he?
Yep.
It was just a nightmare.
Like I said, I think that their run came alive with using Riley Leonard's legs, using that spread out offense to kind of spread out the front and allow one-on-one blocks. I think against Ohio State, you had to tandem block. This was the night you needed those 2 tight ends that you were using earlier in the season to run zone and run your counters with. Okay, those counter trays where you use the 2 tight ends to help seal the edge so those 2, the guard and tackle, can pull around. Okay, things like that I think were better suited for Ohio State. How did Michigan beat them? They didn't do it with the quarterback. Michigan did it by going right at them with big bodies. Right,
Yep.
So I think when you look at Notre Dame, they have that ability, but they got too finesse. They got too comfortable with the finesse. 17 carries for Riley Leonard. And Price and Love touching a combined 7 times is not a winning strategy versus this defense. You got to hit the edge. You need those 2 tight ends to set the edge against Ohio State. Okay? Right. If you're going to try and run the ball with the zone runs, spread that front out. Yes, you can spread it out with spread formations, but you know what? Putting a tight end on each side of the line makes those defensive linemen go like this. Okay? And it gives you clearer lanes to get to second level blocks if you're running zone. So,
or you even do what you see the NFL teams doing and adding that extra bloody offensive lineman to your front.
Right.
You just Didn't see any of that from Notre Dame tonight.
No. I think that's the one thing. And it's like I said, it's not a Notre Dame. It's not beat up on Mike Denbrock because you want to know what? I could do this on a weekly basis with about a dozen offensive coordinators when we're talking college football. The last word every Saturday night during college football season. Right. So I talk about college football offenses all the time. When you want to be spread, I've been a spread coordinator. There's nothing wrong with being spread, but you want to know what? You get too engrossed with going sideways instead of being able to go straight ahead. Right. You know what? You can be spread and go straight ahead. You know, it helps sometimes to be a spread guy and put that running back and quarterback in the pistol and allow that running back to go forward. That helps your power runs out. It helps your inside zone runs out. Okay, so there's a lot of times you could do a lot of different things out of the spread that help your offense, but you get stuck in going with the same things you've been doing. I get it. It worked great to be able to run that wide run and then run Riley Leonard on the counter. It was great, but 17 times is not a winning formula. It got you past Georgia. And let's try this again. It got you past Georgia. What else did you get in that Georgia game? You got a pick six. You got a kickoff return.
Yeah,
that's 14 more points. That might have won the game for you tonight if you've gotten that, but you're not guaranteed to get a pick six and a kickoff return in every game. It doesn't work that way.
No.
You have to manufacture points for 4 quarters if you want to win a national championship. You can't go out there thinking you're going to win 6-3. It doesn't work that way. Okay, right. This is not 1922. We're talking about 2025. Okay, so I think this is the point where Mike Denbrock had to kind of say, we normally do this. This is what's got us here, but I have to augment that because my opponent is different from the last couple of opponents I've faced. I can't do that to these guys because you know what? That quarterback is the guy that's played all season long. This isn't the guy that came in the middle of a playoff game that is now the starter now. Right? This isn't Indiana where they're kind of built around a guy who throws the ball well. They run the ball well, but as long as we can slow their offense down, I can go out there and have my way with their defense. This is not those two teams. Okay, this is a totally different animal.
Yeah.
So you had to go out there. You knew, okay, defensively we're stretched. We got 2 tough running backs. We got a bunch of wide receivers, and we got a really good quarterback to face. I got to go out there and put up points at a premium. I can't do what I've done throughout this playoff and think that's going to be enough. That was a huge mistake. That was a huge miscalculation.
Well, you want to talk about a guy who's going to get picked in the first round now? Will Howard. And that is the talk of NFL teams right now. They are actually talking about Will Howard being a first-round quarterback.
But that we go through this all the time, right? Remember when Clemson finally got over the hump with Watson, right?
Yep.
Maybe Watson, and then all of a sudden he was the surefire QB1 at that point, right? Yep. Because he had just beaten Bama. He did the impossible, okay? Mm-hmm. And then we got to the draft process and things kind of worked its way the way it did. But that always happens with the quarterback that wins the championship. They're always going to start talking about is this guy.
Well, that was out the last couple of days, though. It had been the way Will Howard played in the playoffs before the national championship game.
Oh yeah, but it's always a guarantee when they win. That's got to be the top guy.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out about that the next time.
Put him at number 6 and give him to the Raiders. All right, enjoy yourself, Las Vegas.
The last player I want to mention, Notre Dame player I want to single out is Mr. Greathouse. Jaden Greathouse is a better player than I realized, first of all. I thought he was a solid, maybe even above average college wide receiver. I'm seeing now that he's better than that, and he probably should have been used more all year. That's what I'm beginning to realize. And they have some other receivers that I think they may have not fully gotten everything they could have gotten out of, right? Notre Dame may in the future, and of course they'll have a different quarterback, obviously, in the future, may want to do more things to highlight the strengths of some of their wide receivers, particularly guys who have really strong right after catch ability. Get the ball into their hands really quickly, right?
Which is what we both said about Jaden Harrison all season long. Where is he? He had 17 catches all year. He had the one catch tonight, which went for -4 yards. Yes. But again, why Denbrock did not use those guys more effectively, and that was all year long. It was all year long.
Because
Okay,
once
yes,
again,
Jeremiah
look at
Love
the pass he
and
caught.
Price and Love will get you your yardage, but you still need to have an effective passing game. And when you don't do that with those, like Greathouse, last year was their best receiver as well.
Yeah, but you have to look at his system. His system is controlled, right? A lot of quick game, a lot of screens. Okay, not a lot of attacking intermediate and vertical passing game. Okay, he'll do that off of play action. He'll do that off of fades and stuff like that, and combinations like that. But it's all quick throws. It's not a lot of deep progression throwing, and that's why you don't get that kind of production out of those guys. You look at Ohio State. Ohio State uses deep progression throwing. They attack intermediate. They attack vertical. Right? They have 7-step drop passing type schemes. Okay, so even though he may not be dropping back 7 steps from center, he is working 7-step out of gun. Okay, so there are things that they're doing vertically to clear things up. Those deep crosses where they're coming in between a linebacker and a safety. That's intermediate passing, right? You create vertical options. How? You run that sail concept where you're running the vertical on the outside with the corner that breaks in and back out, right? Right. So you run that creates a vertical throw. It's a 20-yard throw. So they challenge defenses on all levels of the secondary. Notre Dame is not known for totally doing that, and that's part of the problem. Okay, even let's say if they had Angeli playing today, you think they're throwing out? Angeli is still throwing quick underneath, right? They throws that are going to allow these guys to run after catch. That's just who they are. The next year, if Notre Dame doesn't bring in another quarterback, and let's say Angeli's the guy next year, you're going to see the same passing game. You're going to see the same thing where they're going to be riding Love. They're going to have a hard time, though, because Angeli's not going to be a guy to run the football for you.
CJ Carr will be the starting quarterback for the Fighting Irish next year. He's a 5-star prospect that comes from that school up North State, and Marcus Freeman has already said they are not going to get another quarterback in the transfer portal. He's already said that. So they already have a plan of attack, and CJ Carr, from what I see from him playing high school, is that type of a quarterback that can go the 17 to 20 yards easily. So
are they willing to do it?
Are they willing? That's the whole thing. Are they going to be willing to do that? Because they got both Price and Love coming back as the running backs. Again, there's times that you need to use that running game, but there's a time when you need to be efficient in your passing game, and the efficiency that lacked for Notre Dame was that intermediate passing game.
Right. Yes. Well, looking at their roster, and a lot of people were nervous because you're going to lose your tight end, right? You're going to lose Mitchell Evans, right? But I think Raritan's a good talent behind him, so don't be surprised if. And
they've got a freshman coming in from Wisconsin who's 6'4", 245 already. He's a big boy. Notre Dame and tight ends is a fine situation.
Oh yeah,
and Plaxico Burris' son is going to be there at wide receiver next year, and Mr. Bettis' son is also going to be playing wide receiver next year. So the Fighting Irish should be just fine at wide receiver next year.
Right. Will they use them is the question. That's the question. If you're gonna throw the quick game and screens, that stuff, once again, it doesn't get defenses to back up. It actually brings them forward because they're not afraid of your vertical game. So the main thing is you have to get defense to back up. They have to be they have to play.
And what did we say last year when Ohio State beat Notre Dame? We said the same thing.
Yeah. It's become their coaching style. And that's the part that worries me. Yeah. If this has become who you are, if you can't break past that. See, Ryan Day has learned to adapt. And Kirby Smart learned to adapt. Right. Saban over the years learned to adapt. Even Dabo for a while learned to adapt. He's kind of going backwards, but he learned to adapt. Like Marcus Freeman now, this is who you are, but it isn't going to get you. It isn't going to get you all the way there unless you have this ultra dominant team. So you got to learn to adapt. Yeah, that's the next step in the progression for him as a coach. So overall, though, I think they're in a good place as a program. I think they'll be back next year, barring some
Oh, and
major
the other tight end for the Irish next year is the kid that transferred out from Arkansas. So they'll be fine without Mitchell Evans.
Well, I think they're fine now, but adding all that extra beef doesn't help. I mean, doesn't hurt, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and they love, like, if you're using two tight ends, trust me, and they're both threats, you'll be just fine. So
You look at Lively and Likely and Mark Andrews from Baltimore.
Oh,
and
you're hurting a lot of Ravens ears.
But
ears right now.
Everybody that's going off against Mark Andrews is just stupid. That was his first fumble in 5 seasons, kids. 5 seasons.
I don't think the fumble was what bothered him. I think it was the 3 drops.
Well, but still, I mean, the guy has been a very good player for you guys.
He has.
And all this attacking him is just nonsense. It's just utter garbage.
He has. He feels kind of old because he came in with Baker, right? You think about that. They came in together, but no, he's not that old. He's still a pretty sprightly young guy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got plenty of career left.
Yes.
I think, listen, it was a rough game, and it's a hard thing to have a rough game in a playoff game. That's
all about timing. Yeah.
But unfortunately, he gets to think about that for another several months. So hopefully, that inspires them to figure out some other things they got to fix there in Baltimore. But anyway, let's talk about these guys. Ohio State. So they've reached the top of the hill. They've reached the top of the mountain. There are going to be some changes, of course, with college football, like most younger levels of football, a lot of transient movement. Will Howard moves on. What's next at quarterback for this program?
They have a few potential options, and unlike Mr. Freeman, Coach Freeman, they are going to bring in some people in the portal. They are attacking on both fronts. They're still recruiting high level, 4- and 5-star high school players at every position, not just quarterback, but they also believe in backfilling. When you do, because they are going to lose a significant number of significant players, in the upcoming draft, and there'll be some guys who'll hit the portal as well. Yeah, but don't cry no tears for Ryan Day and Ohio State. They'll be all right. They have a very nice. Their top 4, recruiting class. You just pencil it in pretty much top 4 every year. I mean, I remember the last time they weren't in the top 4. It's been a while because Urban Meyer's recruiting classes were pretty much always top 4. You probably have to go back to probably over a decade. You probably have to go back to, I don't know. I wish Donovan was here. He could probably tell me the last time they weren't a top 4 recruiting class, but it's been a minute. So they have a nice situation in terms of that. I think that they're going to miss, to me, Jack Sawyer more than they're going to miss probably anybody else we're going to likely name. Jeremiah Smith obviously is just a freshman, but what Jack Sawyer brings to the table beyond just his actual on-field production, he was, beyond the whole guy who, broke the flag in the Michigan game, but he was the guy that everybody looked to on both sides of the ball. That was the guy that if Jack Sawyer says we're okay, we're okay. If Jack Sawyer says we're pissed off, we're pissed off. If Jack Sawyer says, there wasn't anybody on the team who didn't listen to Jack Sawyer. That's going to be a little harder to replace.
The Buckeyes have 8 seniors on their defense.
Yes, correct.
So, and that's a lot more than the Fighting Irish actually have this year, because of the injury situation, they've got a lot of younger players. So again, not using injuries as an excuse for this game, because I just don't buy that as an excuse. But again, you've got 8 seniors who are all going to get drafted in the NFL, all of them. There's
Yep.
not one that isn't going to get drafted.
Yep. And because of that, like I said, they are attacking on both fronts. So there's, in addition to all of the really, really good football players that they always bring in all the time through, traditional, I guess, I'll use traditional recruitment, junior college. Well, they don't do a lot of junior college stuff, but high school, the occasional junior college, not often, but the occasional junior college guy. But generally, they're either finding people from the normal process of high school. And of course, I guess, the normal will change. It's changing right before our very eyes is what's normal. But combining with that, there's going to be, 4 to 6 high value players coming in through the portal, players who you expect to come in right away and contribute. And that's the advantage to some extent to getting somebody who is a sophomore or a junior, or in some cases a senior, or in few cases, even a super senior coming in as a transfer, is that they have to learn your system. They have to learn a few things about how you do certain things, but they should be ready to play. By the time you're finishing fall camp, that person should be ready to go.
Well, Devin Brown is already there for the Buckeyes. He's
did he? Right, he went to transfer. Yes, he dropped back out, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Brown has been in and out of the portal at least.
And then you got the other freshman this year, Julian Sayin, for the Ohio State Buckeyes as well. Both of them saw a little bit of time this year because of the blowout situations that the Buckeyes found themselves in. But again, I don't believe that you need to have these transfer portal quarterbacks. You recruit these kids to come to your school. You got to give them the opportunity to come and play for your school. Bottom line.
Right. Mason Maggs, I think, has not decided to hit the portal. I think he's still on the roster. And yeah, you already mentioned both Sand and
Brown.
And Brown, who's been, like I said, was gone and then not gone, I guess. So, we'll see when it's all said and done what happens with Brown. But if he doesn't win the job, I think he might be back in the portal. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
All right. So where do we go next year? Who's going to be, as of right now, and there's a lot going to happen, but we've seen a lot of the recruiting classes so far. We've seen a lot of the portal moves so far. Who do you guys think will be in the best position to be at this point next year?
Well, a couple of teams we've already seen. Obviously, Arizona State isn't one of those reload programs that they're going to get back, but it's going to take them a couple of years because they got to build people. They don't, they're like Virginia Tech was.
Yeah.
In
Cincinnati.
And schools like Virginia Tech in its prime under Coach Beamer, and of course more recently Luke Fickell's Cincinnati teams. You need 3 years to climb back up. So you'll see Arizona State again, but not next year. I promise you, they'll be back. Just give them a couple of years. I think that Texas has a very good chance to be back. They won't lose a lot. They're going to lose a lot. Let me rephrase that. When I say they're going to lose a lot, let me rephrase what I'm saying. But that's another place that is essentially open up the cupboard, and you look at all you see is stacked is 4 and 5 stars on the cupboard, right? You reach back and close your eyes and reach around, and whatever you hit is going to be a 4 or 5 star, right? You don't have to even look. So everyone and people have
as long as Arch Manning doesn't get injured, the Texas Longhorns will be just fine.
People have been calling for Arch Manning to play more since he first arrived, right? Since he arrived as a true freshman, they'll finally get what they wanted, right? He won't be platooning, he won't be spelling, he'll be the man. And we will soon see if he is all the things that some of us have heard that he is.
I'm sorry, Bill.
I think, and they'll still run the ball at an elite level. They'll still have multiple wide receiver NFL prospect types. Their offensive line will lose some, obviously a lot of snaps in terms of experience, right? They won't be as experienced, but once again, 4 and 5 stars, mostly 5. So I don't expect them to drop off much. I think that Michigan bounces back. The Michigan we saw this year, and sort of they got better as the year went along, right? So they were not great when the season began, and even the middle of the year, not that great. But you could see if you watch the last 3 Michigan games, that arrow is pointed up big time. And there are another place that has really great recruiting classes, and they find some. They target a few particular places of need, also the portal as well. I won't be shocked if Michigan finds its way back. I won't be shocked if Penn State finds its way back. It could be Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, and Penn State. Like, I'm not predicting that, but if you told me that all of them were in the playoffs next year, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if those were 4 of the 12 next year. Amongst the non-power, whatever the number will be by this time next year, watch out for Tulane to be back. I really like the way their program is set up. I really like how they work the portal, right? The portal is even more important to some extent for places that don't you don't throw open the cupboard and there's 4 and 5 star recruits just stacked. When you're a place that gets 2 and 3 star recruits, the way you get 4 and 5 stars is when they transfer to you from, name of a big school, right? That's how you get those. When those guys come from LSU, when those guys come from Alabama, and they come from Texas and Tennessee and wherever, that's how you get your 4 and 5 stars. You get them on the resale market. So I think Tulane is going to be really good next year. Boise State probably will have to do them once again, 2-3 year rebuild kind of thing. They'll be good, but 9 wins good. Let's see. I mean, there's no reason Clemson can't be back. Also, they also now they have not until very recently done much in the portal. Now that's beginning to change. They've done more in the portal. The last
3 players this year. 3.
Right. Well, my point is that they've done more than they've done. They're addressing the portal more and more effectively than they have in the past. There's no reason Clemson can't be right back here. In my mind, there's no reason they can't be back. I think South Carolina is a school that people need to be watching.
They
have a really good chance. I don't think SMU is going anyplace either. I don't see any reason why SMU can't be back here. They actually have a good, maybe not 5, but a really good smattering of 4. They're what I call 3 at a 3.25 star program, right? A few 2 stars, a whole bunch of 3 stars, and even a couple of 4 stars, sprinkled in. So, and they develop, right? They do a good job developing the guys who maybe aren't 4 stars, get developed. So I feel like SMU has a decent chance to be back. I'm going to feel like an idiot later, probably, but I will not be shocked if USC is much better next year. And if they aren't, they'll be looking for a new coach. But I think
they hired Ryan as their defensive coordinator. Right. Now everybody who's
let's make sure we're saying the right one. They hired Rob, not Rex.
Yes, Rob.
Yes.
Rob.
I was just about to say Rob, who of course has been a defensive coordinator in the NFL before with the Cowboys and many other teams as well.
Many times, yes.
They'll be good the first year. The question is what happens the second year.
Yeah. and even offensively, I don't see USC being that much of a challenge, especially because they're playing a Big Ten schedule now, and they do not play well in the cold weather. They do not play well. They're not like in Oregon. Oregon can play in any weather.
Well,
yeah, I think some of that is changing on the fly. They have they realized that they did not do enough in the trenches. Look at the last 2 recruiting classes. More beefier people, more large people. And that was the thing I noticed, right? When USC was at its best, there'd be a bunch of people with a lot of vowels at the end of their names. And they would be 320, 315, 318, 327. And then they got away from that. And they started basically like a Oklahoma team. Not to denigrate that at all, but there's nothing wrong with being Oklahoma. Oklahoma wins a lot of football games, people. But when you're going to play the Wisconsins of the world and the Michigans of the world, the United States of the world, and the Oregons even of the world, if you don't have 3 or 4 people who do not fit comfortably inside of most, flight seats on an airliner, like that, you need people who are uncomfortable on flights, right? You need people who do not easily fit into an airline seat. They didn't have enough of those people.
This is where the Fighting Irish need to increase their size, especially on the defensive tackle side, because Howard Cross was 280, Riley Mills is 290. They need 25, 30 pounds more of beef on the defensive tackle front.
Right.
That's something that the Fighting Irish really do need. Because again, when you come up against this Ohio State team, they got manhandled inside tonight. They did.
Right. Yep.
And all I know is on August the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, or September the 1st, the Fighting Irish are going to go down to Miami, where the next national championship game is going to be held, and they're going to pound the Hurricanes. That's that. There's my prediction for weekend number 1. We don't know which day it's going to be. It's they got 4 dates.
Well, I'll tell you, I would be. Let me put it more as a question than me saying it. I've seen this program ascending for a couple of years now. I think they had a great stride this year in Indiana. Can they make it back next year? I know we know they're losing Rourke, but
and a lot of other
can they make it back next year? This, like we said, this program was ascending a couple of years ago. Nobody thought twice about Indiana.
Coach Signetti, he has just got to be able to hit that transfer portal like he did this year as well.
Yeah.
He doesn't have his guys from James Madison anymore either. His 13 players. I guess no. There's 3 or 4 of them that are sticking around. But again, if he hits the transfer portal, and Indiana is now going to be able to recruit better at home because of this season.
Yep.
That's going to be beneficial for the Hoosiers. And again, as Coach Corso always says, anybody but Purdue,
Yeah, you don't get a lot of 5 stars at Indiana, but you're going to get more 4 stars than you've ever seen before, or at least not recently. Yeah. You'll see more than you've seen in a very long, maybe ever, but certainly in a very long time. You'll see, and of course, they will become a portal destination also for some players at the Big Ten and MAC and other levels who feel like they're good enough to play in the Big Ten and just aren't getting as much burn as they would like to get at wherever they're playing, or they're killing it in the MAC, but they feel like they can play at the Big Ten level. So they'll be a place where some people will find their way in the portal. Let's see.
I got to give Curtis Rourke and Bo Nix a whole lot of credit there for both playing with those 2 injuries that they had this year. Curtis Rourke tore an ACL and he didn't miss any time after that injury. I mean, he had the thumb surgery earlier, but when he did his ACL and he still went out there and played as well as he did, and wow! And Bo Nix with the broken back, that's pretty amazing as well.
It is amazing, and that's what you look for, right? One of the things when you're a talent evaluator is, can a guy push through? Phillip Rivers, right, playing with a torn ACL. When you see someone play with an injury that other players don't play with, don't manage to even suit up and play at a high level with an injury where other players wouldn't even suit up, that's a little extra check mark in your little evaluation book. So people like Mr. Rourke do not grow on trees. So as I said, I think Indiana will need to sort of climb back up the hill. Jumping back to the SEC, LSU is another we better be better next year or else kind of situation.
Well, we got a few of those down in the southern part of the country, right? So you're right. LSU is one of those. But
LSU had better be a playoff team next year.
and Coach Kelly saying that he was backing Notre Dame just killed the plan. It just killed the whole plan. What are you doing? You wanted to go and win national championships at LSU. Well, don't come back and wish the Fighting Irish well in their effort. You know, I mean, that was horrible. That was horrible.
Well, how about, we look at what's going on in Tallahassee, right? A one-win season, right? He's got to win, all right? And they were starting to pass the collection hat around for his buyout, right? So he's got to win this year.
Yeah.
And so he fires the coordinators. He brings in 2 new coordinators. One I don't think is going to help him very much in his offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn. I don't think that was the greatest hire to keep your job if I'm Mike Norvell, in my opinion. And Gus Malzahn has been a winning coach, yes. However, his offenses, if you've seen the last few times, have not exactly been a clinic-worthy event, okay, to say the least. He's had some.
They ran the football well. That was about it, though.
But that's all they could do, and then that's what he became, a one-trick pony. Yep. Right? He became that at Auburn. He was that at UCF. And remember, when he got to UCF, Dylan Gabriel was there, right? So people thought Dylan Gabriel was the problem until he goes and lights it up in Oklahoma and then takes Oregon to an undefeated regular season. All of a sudden, Dylan Gabriel isn't the problem anymore. Then he had Jefferson, and Jefferson didn't even make it past the first 5 games. So, there's something wrong there. If I'm trying to save my job, that's not the guy I'm hiring. I'm sorry, that's just me. That's just me. I'm desperate. I want to hold on to my job. I'm not going to bring in the guy who's kind of struggled as calling his offense, and it's literally his offense. Okay, so
the issue is that their passing game is extremely rudimentary in the Malzahn offense. It's all predicated on catching people out of position, right? It's not built at beating defenses that are just doing the right thing, right? You have to literally catch somebody out of position. It's a built to find coverage bust kind of offense.
Yes.
And if there isn't a coverage bust, you may struggle because you have to run the ball, and not just run the ball well, but at a dominant level, right? When the Malzahn offense has worked at an extremely high level, you have a quarterback who's not just a willing and effective runner, but an elite runner.
Yeah.
Right. Nick Marshall, obviously Cam Newton. I mean, you need that. You need somebody who is a terrific runner. Even the Bo Nix level of runner is probably not quite enough for what you need in that offense. And then you have to have running backs, and then your offensive line has to win and things like that. But while there's some wing T elements in the running game and fun, sort of exotic wing T kind of elements, also the passing game is wing T-ish too. And so if you've ever had to defend, and maybe I don't know if you guys have, as a coordinator, ever had to defend wing T,
yes.
Once they're throwing the football, you're like, yes, I've done it. Like that's a
Jeff has seen enough of Mr. Malzahn there to Jeff. How many times did he ever pass to a tight end? Very rarely.
Are you counting the late great Philip Lutzenkirchen? Or does he count?
outside of that, gentleman, but how often has he actually used his tight ends in the passing game? He doesn't.
He did a little at UCF, but
a little,
but once again, they weren't the primary option,
no.
And there wasn't a lot of creative stuff for them either.
No.
It was a lot more of a play action or RPO based passing.
Yep.
And even with that,
Or
Just-
they were usually the fourth option, however.
Yeah, but it was a lot more of the. Once again, it's all based on jet motions and,
Yeah.
and riding off of that, and
We need to
it
move
was
the
a modernized
linebackers.
version of the waggle that we used to see, like
Yep.
Bill was talking about. Yeah,
If you don't move the linebackers and safeties into places where they're moving to defend the run, you aren't going to be able to create in the passing game. You can't get.
No.
They're not being opened by like switch releases. They're not getting open
No.
based on stretching the zone to the point where it creates an opening, or even beating man coverage in the traditional ways that man beaters work. It's all based on someone being out of position because they're trying to defend the run. If that doesn't
there's
work,
no Y option, and
There's not.
you're kind of screwed.
Y option is not. It doesn't exist with Melzone. It doesn't.
Yes.
So, but again, I mean, and I don't know who Michigan's going to be putting up in their front line either, because Graham and Grant were just both so phenomenal for them on the front line for that school up north.
But they seem to find linemen, like Notre Dame, right? They seem to keep finding linemen. So I think they'll be fine on the line. I want to see, they have the same problem Notre Dame has. When's the last time you've seen a real explosive wide receiver out of those two schools?
You haven't, not for years.
I mean, Claypool was explosive.
It was, but that's now what's how many years ago now?
It's been a minute. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Those are becoming like the Yeti. Every once in a while.
Claypool was explosive. Claypool was explosive for Notre Dame, but it was always too late in the game for Notre Dame to be using the guy, and that's why he was so wide open as well.
Yeah. But like Jeremiah Smith types do not often suit up.
Yes.
With the gold helmet. You are correct. They don't get a lot of those types. Yeah.
Or the maize and blue lately.
We're not seeing that with Michigan either anymore.
That's right.
We saw that for many years with a lot of the guys there. Hell, even Ty Streets had times where he was explosive when he was at Michigan. But you don't see those guys anymore. You get it every once in a while. You get a guy. You go, okay, he's got some juice to him.
They used to get Anthony Carter and Craig McMurtry, and he had a nice little Imani Toomer. They had a nice little run there at the position.
Who was the one that played with Cleveland and the Jets? Big receiver.
Oh, we had a lot of big ones.
But he had juice down the field too.
Oh, okay. You mean Braylon Edwards? You're talking about
Braylon Edwards. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. I could see his face, but his name was
I knew you meant. Yeah.
And Penn State needs to find those 5-star wide receivers as well. Until they do, I mean, Singleton and Allen are both coming back in that backfield.
And they had a good run for a while.
They hit the portal pretty hard for receivers, as you may have heard.
Yeah.
Greg. You may have heard
they had a good run of receivers for a while. You think of Godwin and the guys that recently came out of there, But once again, it's gotten back to get the linemen, get the pass rushers, get the guys in the secondary.
Yep.
And then you can work with some athletes at receiver. But to me, if you don't have guys on the outside to make teams go, you know what, we better pay attention out there. I think you're too easy to stop because you're trying to manufacture passing yards instead of throwing to guys that are hard to cover.
Right.
Because they don't have Tyler Warren next year either. Which, okay, so now you need another good solid tight end.
They've got tight ends like that's.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
Tyler Warren.
They don't have the game breaker guy at the wide receiver spot. They just don't, and that's their problem. Drew Aller needs one of those guys to be the guy that can get open and be a 50-50 catch type guy, et cetera, et cetera. And when you got the kids that they had this year, and you don't even throw a pass to a wide receiver in a playoff game, you're in trouble.
Right.
So.
I think they may have had better receivers than they knew they had also, but next year they'll have to know that they have them, right? They can't afford, it's not possible for them to completely avoid using them. You'll see more. I promise you that much. And I think they have like I said, the cupboard's not bare anymore. It may have been, but it's not bare anymore. They've hit both through, high school recruitment and in the portal. Penn State has brought in some receivers. So I think you'll see Penn State approach the passing game differently next year.
Let's circle back to Notre Dame because we're talking about receivers. We know Greathouse. I thought Greathouse was really good.
He had a terrific game.
Yeah, he did.
He was the only guy who was really beating coverage. Like he was out there getting it done.
I think the guy that has a lot more potential than we've seen enough out of him is Faison. And I think he's a guy, if you could get him a more developed route tree, him in the slot is going to be a mismatch for a lot of people because he's a guy that you can get. If he can learn to master pacing and getting in and out of breaks quickly, he's a guy who catches the ball and separates after the catch very well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things with him. You want to be able to utilize that skill. They try to do it, but it's like they try to do it on screens. They try to do it on slants and a couple of mesh routes where he's crossing the middle and you're picking his guy off. But allowing him to work a defender, if he can learn the release and pace, certain ways to set up his routes, that kid I think can be a lot better and a much improved prospect when you talk about next level as a slot receiver. Because I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to win a lot on the outside, but moving him around in the slot, I think will be a guy who can turn into, he'll never be a St. Brown. And I don't mean Equanimous, right? But right. He'll never be the other brother. But
why do you always bring up Equanimous? Because
be honest with you, Equanimous.
You want both of us to feel bad. We both loved him.
Listen, he was one of my biggest misses.
Yep.
Okay, he's the dude I thought highly of. I thought he would translate to the next level, and boy, oh boy, he's like the Kevin Moss of wide receivers. He's just the big strikeout. So,
well, the game that the Fighting Irish did use Faison in the slot a lot of was his best game of the year, and that was against Indiana. 7 receptions, 89 yards. That was easily his best game. And again, why do they not find them earlier on in the game? You can't always go out there running the football. Teams will stack you up and stop you in the running game. I don't care. You need to pass that ball a little bit more at Notre Dame. 10 times more. And in the first half.
Yeah. You can be a lot more balanced.
Yep.
When you are able to threaten people with the pass as much as you are with the run. And it doesn't mean that threatening them by throwing it 50 yards down the field. It means being able to come out on first down and complete a pass that gets you 11 yards and a first down on first down, right? Because you can catch the ball at 6 yards and run for the next 5, all right? These are things that a lot of other programs do. Georgia does it. Bama does it, all right? So we're seeing people able to do it. Hell, a lot of the Big 12 teams do it. Okay, so it's something that, like I said, the mindset when he first took over last year was that, we're going to control and we're going to, and this whole run, I was waiting for it to bite us in the butt, and it didn't happen. Okay, until now. And it's like, okay, well, it was a great run. You got to the national title game in the first year of the playoff. Congrats. But now you're going to be hard-pressed to do this again because people are going to expect you to be back here next year if you know the day. So I think there's got to be some adjustment here because people are going to adjust to you.
Yeah. And briefly, watch out for Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross at Penn State. A couple of the guys they landed in the portal. I promise you'll see those guys on the field.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So final thoughts, because guys, we get to come back in 2 nights and talk some draft.
We do?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Well, my final thoughts that what a emotional roller coaster of a year this has been for Ohio State football. We've talked to our friend Josh Keatley quite a bit, and Josh was with a lot of the people who were calling for, after the Michigan loss, there to be an examination of the
Ryan Day. They wanted Ryan Day fired. They wanted him gone.
Right.
That's the bottom line there.
Yes,
because when you can't beat that school up north and you are in Columbus, Ohio, that is the one game that those fans want you to win annually. They don't ever want to lose to that school up north.
Right. And so this was a team that, made all the kinds of national news in the wrong kinds of way. You had the rather ugly brawl after the game, the attempted planting of the flag. And once again, like I said, people, calling for your coach to be fired. And to see them pull together. And once again, Jack Sawyer is a big part of that. That's why I said you can't just replace that guy, because he's one of the people that helped organize that players only meeting, and then they had the players and coaches meeting, follow the players only meeting, where apparently all the laundry was aired, clean, dirty, and everything in between. And it was the kind of thing where there was like screaming and cursing and crying and hugging, like all of it. It was, apparently very cathartic, but lots of things.
Ryan Day has the third highest winning percentage of any college football coach of all time.
Yes, right.
Who's coached more than 50 games. He's 70-10. So Ohio State wanting to fire this guy has always been a bit of a joke to me.
It's insanity. Yes, correct.
It's insanity. It's just totally crazy. Because I mean, he's behind Newt Rockne and one other football coach with the 50 games, and then he's third.
Amos. Yeah, he's behind people like Pop Warner.
Amos Stagg,
Frank Leahy,
Stagg,
right? Frank Leahy,
Leahy as well, yeah. Leahy is fourth. Leahy was fourth.
Yeah, right. The guys who are ahead of him, right? Leahy's behind, but the guys who are ahead of him and the guys behind him are literally Mount Rushmore coaches, right? He's that's the pace he's on. He's on a Mount Rushmore pace as a coach. So yeah, it always made me chuckle. Also, the calling for Ryan Day's head, and people would try to defend it. Well, the reason, I know it sounds crazy, but no, there's no but. There's no but.
They just have this mental thing about losing to that school up north that just drives those people bananas. It drives them off the wall.
But this is the same argument they had about Jim Harbaugh, right? He can't beat Ohio State.
Yep.
He can't get this done. Then when he finally gets that done, he can't win the national title. You don't fire winning coaches, okay? Because they're closer to winning it all than you are to keep swapping out coaches trying to get that guy. So when you got a guy that's consistently winning, you don't fire the guy because we're not winning championships. He's a consistent winner. You don't fire him just to fire him. So
exactly.
Had Michigan done that, there's no national championship last year. Had Ohio State done that to Ryan Day, there's no national championship this year. All right. When you're winning consistently, you're a lot closer to winning it all than when you are constantly playing the shell game with head coaches.
Right. And let me give the same piece of advice to Penn State.
James,
I know you're frustrated.
Cannot beat Ohio State.
I know you're frustrated, but you can't.
It drives me bananas.
Right. But you can't until you do. Right. Because and speaking of Ohio State, Julian Fleming, right? And is another one of those big time, 4-star recruits is going to end up playing some wide receiver for Penn State next year as well. While I don't know if they fixed all their problems at the position, they have a nice little influx of talent coming at the wide receiver position through the portal and recruitment.
And I think that's why Aller, Singleton, and Allen all said they're coming back, because they know they're going to be able to throw the football better, and that means Singleton and Allen are both going to be even deadlier on the ground.
Right, and Drew Aller has a shot to be quarterback 1 next year.
Oh, easily, easily. I mean, he could have been quarterback 3 in this class.
Correct. Yep, could have been quarterback 3 in this class, has a shot at quarterback 1 in the next one.
Yeah.
Well, we'll dig deeper into that Wednesday night when we start talking NFL draft, because Draft Central starts this Wednesday, 9:15 p.m. Eastern, 8:15 p.m. Central. So you'll see our smiling faces on Wednesday night. It will be full of juice because it'll be the season premiere. We'll be talking about some of the college bowl games that have happened, the Hula Bowl, the Tropical Bowl. Yep. It'll be our preview for East-West Shrine. And when we get into next week, we'll do our Senior Bowl preview and a little bit of cleanup on the Shrine as we get ready for that. And we'll talk our first position of the season, centers. So we will get into the position series nice and early. With that being said, guys, it's time to say goodnight.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
So to all the Fighting Irish faithful out there, like myself included, and Mr. Jeff Barnes, the Fighting Irish did play a hell of a good season this year. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to beat Ohio State. That's fine. But as long as the Fighting Irish are able to compete for a national title, that's all I care about. It's only you can only win these things every so often. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah.
You know, as I'm well aware in the professional level as well.
Listen, I tell people all the time when people start talking about we haven't won a title in so long. Do you have a good team? Yeah. Then what are you complaining about? Because your team is winning. Winning's hard enough. But championships are not guaranteed. They're earned on the football field, and they're won by the best team, not the best collection of players, not the best coaches, the best team. Okay, They have to be playing their best as a collective at the time when they win it all. Right? So people are always talking about my team hasn't won this. I'm upset about that. Fire this guy. This guy stinks. Listen, is your team winning? Stop complaining, okay? Because guess what? You can be in a lot of different situations. There's a lot of FSU fans that are quite angry right now. Guess what? There are a lot of Florida Gator fans.
The whole state of Florida is pissed off. The whole state of Florida is pissed off. Somebody from that state has to make the tournament field next year too, or else there'll be ugliness and firings and whatnot. I mean, think about this.
But Bill.
Yes.
You see it in the news every day, that Florida man story. So just get used to it because Florida is just that way. They're always going to be like that. And you know, I feel for Jeff's safety living in Florida because again, I mean, come on, Monty always has those Florida guy stories on his show.
Listen,
they're just nightmares.
I'm a New Yorker living in Florida, but you want to know what? I know how to I know how to act around different people. I spent enough time in the South over my life being I may have been born in New York, but I have family that I spent a lot of time with in Virginia. So I've been in the South long enough to know where to and where not to go. Yes, Norfolk in Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Right. Yeah, and I mean, we were talking about, you know, just how, I mean, you know, once again, we know fan is short for fanatic. If Florida is blanked again next year, the whole state is blanked next year, one of those has to make it next year, right?
Yes.
Florida State, or Miami, one of them has to be in this round of 12 next year, or else, it will not be fun or pretty or whatever, because, I mean, this is one of the jewels in the crown of football talent, right?
So is California, and what are their schools doing? Nothing.
Well, I think one of their schools won't be there. Well, I have a weird feeling that USC will be dramatically better next year. And once again, I may look like an idiot by this time next year, but I think they might at least fight their way in. I think USC might fight its way in. UCLA is probably a little ways away. Cal should probably join back the old, or whatever the new, whatever it is, the new pack,
whatever it is going to be.
They should probably head back to that.
It's going to be Cal
built for this. I do like their quarterback, but he transferred out. I really liked Mendoza, but he's gone. So that the one player I really liked on their team is they got some things to figure out in Berkeley. Stanford
they also have another very good running back who was just hurt most of this year.
Jay Knott missed pretty much the whole year. And Stanford too. Stanford also may want to consider rejoining the pack, whatever. They doesn't look like they're really built for this either. But I feel like USC will acclimate, right? They have all the resources.
I'm not going to say they're going to build themselves back up next season. I'm just not. There's too much. There's too many holes. There was too many holes there.
Oh, I'm not saying that they'll win it all, but I think they might get to the 12. I think that one of the Florida schools finds its way into the 12.
Closest would be Miami, I think.
Yeah, it might not be Miami though. Like a lot of times, that team comes from, farther away. What if Florida, wins three or three more games next year? They could be in it.
Let's just go to USF. Let's boost up the USF program because those other three schools, they just suck. They really do.
Well, I think if you're going to look at the ones, listen, Scott Frost going back to UCF may be the best bet.
That might be your best.
That might be the best bet.
Yeah,
that's a fun and cool story, and I think he'll have success there. I think he'll need a year to sort of, flip the program back going in the right direction, but I think he'll get it done. If we're talking about non-power fives, other ones I could see, making a run at this thing. I won't be shocked at all if Memphis finds its way into the mix too. They're just
got a solid program, and boy, they had two horrible games this year. Two.
Yeah, but that's Memphis every year. Memphis always has this great team, but finds a way to lose these odd games.
They probably could lose. Yeah,
that knocks them out of either a title game or it knocks them out of a major bowl. They've always have one or two losses during the year that make you scratch your head and go, "How did you wind up losing that game?"
Yeah. I just feel like maybe next year's maybe the year they figure that out. Or if they don't, they could still be sort of in the picture. But if they do, right? If they do, and sometimes you just get the right mix of young men coming in, or an extraordinary leader, somebody who like that has that Jack Sawyer kind of approach, and people rally around him. But they might find somebody who is that person that lifts them that next rung up, next rung on the ladder, and they find their way in. If you run the table, if you go undefeated, or with the current structure, even if you have a loss, that's the Power 5 school doesn't have to be undefeated, but you can have a loss of the non-Power 5 school. You can now have a loss and still make it in. So that's cool. But I think Memphis is another one to watch. I would say that's one to watch. The last former Pac-12 school I'd say at least to monitor is Washington. I think they may still be a year away.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they're pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
I feel like Washington also is pointed in the right direction. I feel like they may end up being one of those teams that ends up maybe just missing by a spot or two. They end up being close, but no cigar. But I think
I'm gonna have to teach Jeff how to pronounce the cornerback's name from Washington this year, who's going to get drafted. Isafinians, okay? Prize sock. It's not that hard, Jeff. It is not.
Trust me, it's harder than it looks.
See, now there's not as many of them real bad names this year either.
Oh, there's always somebody, Greg. As we get down the draft board, there's always that kid.
It's not as bad as 2022 and 2023 was for you, because those names were horrible for you. I mean,
there's always at least 8 African guys who got names that you got to sit there and really pronounce properly.
But they're usually phonetic, so just don't panic. Just don't panic, Jeff.
How about this? I was just at the Tropical Bowl. They added a young Polynesian player late, and I'm actually the guy telling him how to pronounce the guy's name. But think about that. I'm the guy telling them how to pronounce the guys.
Jeff, you actually were giving people instructions on how to call somebody's name correctly.
Yeah. I was the one actually telling them how to pronounce the guy's name.
Well, Bill, I guess our work is over here now. We don't need you to help us anymore. That's it. We just don't need to help them.
You know?
Let me throw one last dark horse. Nebraska. If Nebraska does the right things, they have a shot to come. They could be what Arizona State sort of was this year, that sort of came out of nowhere program. They have a shot at the Big 12, I think, an outside shot. But I think they have a shot at the Big 12.
And I'll give you one other SEC team next year to keep an eye on as well, and that's Ole Miss. Ole Miss he has just been busy in the transfer portal.
Yep.
Lane Kiffin finds a lot of talent in that transfer portal.
And to be more specific, Alex M. Brown work in that portal. And yeah, a friend of the show, in fact, is the director of player personnel for Ole Miss, and that's the guy, right? He's the guy making it happen. But Lane Kiffin is the guy that says, "Go get me. I need one of these. I need him to be this tall, this fast, this whatever."
Bingo.
And he gives the list. You know, but the guy who's finding them and putting them in the basket, that's Alex M. Brown, friend of the show.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
So you want to hear the name I had to teach you guys how to say?
All right.
Tonyaki Matealona.
Woo! You did it. You
see? Now, how hard is that? How hard is that? It's all phonetic.
Well, the good thing was there's no O's in it. O's throw the whole damn thing off.
Oh.
But, you know, it could have been real easy to say Tonjiaki, but the G was silent, so it was Tonyaki.
Yep. Tonyaki.
Right, so, yeah, from Nevada.
Yep. Well, I think we will see you gentlemen on Wednesday night.
Wednesday
night it is. So make sure everybody is tuning in Wednesday night. Once again, 9:15, not 9 this year. We're going 9:15 Eastern, 8:15 Central. We'll be here. First episode of Draft Central.
My time, Mountain, 6:15 Pacific, and 3:15 in the afternoon in Hawaii.
3:15 Hawaii time. Shout out to our friend Brock Vieira.
Yes.
Look at me with all of these time zones, all locked in.
Well, for you, it was 24-hour time there, Gunny.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I remember some of those flights too. It was, oh God.
You just make sure you're at the airport at 1700 hours.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to get off the plane at another 1600 hours. Oh, okay. This will be fun.
Well, it's going to be fun seeing you guys Wednesday night. For the amazing Bill Carroll, Greg Rector, and myself, Jeff Barnes. Thanks for tuning in. Congratulations to Ohio State.
Congratulations.
You're national champions for 2024. Don't say 2025. 2025 hasn't happened yet. Just because the game is played in 25 doesn't mean that they are the 25 champions. They are the 2024 national champions.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Josh Keatley will sleep the sleep of the just tonight.
And Bill, before you even came on the air, I had already sent him his congratulations, which I always do.
Yeah.
I don't care who my opponent is. I would always send them congratulations. Why people don't do that more often is beyond me, but anyhow. Yeah.
Well, on our way out the door, we're going to say rest in peace to Bob Uecker.
Yes.
Absolute legend.
Yep.
Just a little bit outside.
Just a little bit outside.